All right, welcome. I want to call this meeting of the Morgantown Utility Board for September 10th to order. We have approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes? Were there any corrections or objections or notices of misspelling or anything else to that effect? If not,
I move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of August 14th, 2024 as submitted.
all right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We have public portion for anyone from the public who would like to speak. Is anyone here to do that? No. Seeing no one, we'll proceed with the agenda. All right. The first thing we have is new business. And we have what I think is probably the thrill of every board, which is to recognize their employees. And tonight we have that opportunity as a board, and so what I want to do is briefly go through why we need to recognize these employees. Star City and Cheat Lake wastewater treatment plants have received a very prestigious award called Platinum Peak Performance. This award is given by the National Association of Clean Water Agencies to wastewater treatment plants that are 100% compliant throughout the year. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I don't think there's anything that I'm ever compliant with throughout the year, 100%. So I can't imagine maintaining such a standard, but they did. Two things make this year's award so special. First is that this year's Platinum Award marks the 23rd consecutive award for Star City plant and the 25th for the Cheat Lake plant. Now, this requires an initial 5 years of consecutive compliance. This year actually denotes an amazing 29 years of consecutive 100% compliance for the Star City plant and 30 years for the Cheat Lake facility. Again, 1 year, 30 years, 29 years, phenomenal. More importantly, it's not just about the numbers. Who does this? Who puts us in compliance? Who makes it possible? Well, that's our staff. What our wastewater treatment plant staff accomplished is beyond extraordinary because if you remember, the wastewater treatment plant was taken down and put up and moved around and restructured and spent how many years?
Oh my goodness.
Long.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
So big upgrades over a period of 5 years to nearly every part of that plant, and our staff never faltered. We still came in 100% each one of those years. So even during the extremely intricate transition, bringing these new systems online, retiring dated technologies, our staff rose to the occasion and met the extraordinary challenges that they faced. The same can be said for Cheat Lake wastewater treatment plant because, as we know, and as we are planning for the future, that plant has been at maximum capacity more than it has not been at maximum capacity. And that means a lot of hard work for the staff to keep it in compliance. So once again, our staff has been able to do the extraordinary and keep us within award-winning standards for the work that they do and the work that we are proud of them for. So in this world-class level of professionalism, that places MUB at the top of community organizations in protecting public health and the environment, because that's really what it comes down to. We can't forget that. We talk about water, we talk about wastewater treatment, but we're really talking about health and environmental protection. In fact, these awards place MUB staff in the top 20% or 2%, the best performing wastewater treatment plants in the nation. That's substantial. And we are very, very proud of them for doing that. And we cannot let it go by unnoticed. So at this time, we'd like for the leaders of those two facilities to step forward to receive their awards.
Photo with the board and Chris and Ernie and Jared. Absolutely. Hey, congratulations.
Shake their hands, and don't we give them
Congratulations. Look at you, first year. Getting awards. First year.
I can't take much credit for that.
Oh, I can't take much credit.
That's the little.
Who's
Now, where do you want to?
Inherited
Dave?
the
Up here?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't sure what.
You want to
Hold
grab?
it.
Yeah, hold the award if you don't care, guys. If you'll each pick up an award there, and yeah, Jared, hand off the one that has less numbers.
And do I need to hold up the microphone
Yeah,
because there's a board member on the other end?
Oh, yeah. Here, come in. Sit a little bit sideways so you
Yes,
get
that's-
everybody
yeah.
in here.
Cut yourself up. Right?
Best
Squeeze in a
profile.
little bit for me. Sorry, guys. All right, we're good. Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations, guys.
Good,
Yes,
good job.
congratulations. Great job.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Congratulations. I'll keep it
Team
going.
newbies.
Yeah.
Real novice.
The bar is set high, I want to say.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Fantastic. It's like building the bridge while you walk on it.
Exactly.
Thanks for the kind words.
You're more than welcome.
It's all right, man.
Sure. Every board member is welcome to comment also.
I just want to commend the operators at MUB. This is, if ever you hear something in the media or the community, it's probably because of something we've said at one of these meetings. It's not because of the operators at MUB. This is such an incredible organization. Our drinking water, our wastewater is taken care of in truly world-class fashion. And so thank you all for the work that you guys do. It's one of those things that's completely and totally underappreciated until you're not doing that work. And then, my goodness, is it noticed.
Right.
So thank you so much for doing the dirty work, the hard work, and making it look like it is just something you do correctly every day for a quarter of a century.
Also,
Yep.
that is incredible.
Thanks for your support.
More than
You
welcome.
bet. Thank
We're
you.
very proud of you. All right. Next, on new business, we have approval of bids for the purchase of 2 vehicles and 1 day cab tractor.
Yes, so we have moving forward with some purchases. The first vehicle we're going to talk about is a new work truck for the wastewater treatment plant lift station maintenance crew. The truck they had was rear-ended in a vehicle accident and totaled. And so we're replacing that vehicle. And so we've opened bids. And on the 28th of August, the low bidder was Whiteside Chevrolet in the amount of $74,858. The bid tabs are included in your packet. It's our recommendation the board accept that bid.
Okay, so any discussion?
I have a question. Did whoever hit us, did we get reimbursed for insurance?
Yeah, well, our insurance will go
Yeah.
to work with theirs. So yeah, we've already, it's all in the process
Okay.
of us getting paid. The delivery time on this truck is about 200 days. So we'll have
Another
a little,
challenge that we always have.
yeah, trucks are a hot commodity.
Okay, I need a motion.
I move to approve the bid submitted by Whiteside Chevrolet for a new Chevrolet 3500 Silverado work truck in the amount of $74,858.
Second.
All right. No further discussion? All in favor of the bid for $74,858, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise. Motion carries.
Price of trucks now, that should at least come with heated and cooled seats.
Okay.
So also on the 28th, we opened bids for a new work truck for the construction and maintenance division. The lowest qualified bidder for the larger work truck was Whiteside Chevrolet in the amount of $103,637. Again, your bid tabs are included. It's our recommendation you accept the bid from Whiteside Chevrolet.
Okay. Any discussion? Any questions?
Was this just a routine replacement of an aging truck?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the bid submitted by Whiteside Chevrolet for a new Chevrolet 5500 Silverado work truck in the amount of $103,637.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
All right. All in favor of the purchase of the Chevrolet 5500 truck, say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next.
Okay, on so the next item, our heavy hauler day cab tractor, the one that we have used for many years with 600,000+ miles on it. The transmission has gone out and it has passed its useful life, and we need to replace that truck. It was not necessarily planned, but it's something that we do have to have to haul our larger excavator with. So we opened bids on the 4th of September. We had a number of bidders. Reclaim was not being considered their bid because it exceeded the maximum mileage limit of 350,000. The 2019 Western Star 4900 bid by M&K Truck Centers, they had sold it. They've let us know after we opened bids that they had sold the truck already. They also bid a 2017 Peterbilt, but that truck is located in Michigan, and they were asking for $1,000 deposit, non-refundable deposit, to drive it to the Pittsburgh facility, and we declined, not knowing the condition of the truck and what we would think of it when we get there. So the 2020 Western Star 4900 bid by FIDA from the Pittsburgh facility. We went up, we looked at our fleet manager, our superintendent of construction went up, looked at it, it's in good condition. The bid was $113,250. It's our recommendation the board accept FIDA's bid.
Okay. Discussion, questions?
I'm guessing it's something then, as soon as we bless it, that's available for immediate use.
Yes, we can probably get delivery next week.
Was the previous, I'm assuming the previous truck was also purchased used?
Yes, it
I
was.
assume 600,000 miles inside Mont County would be a heck of a lot of driving.
Yes, I don't think we probably did that here.
Yeah, I was glad to, yeah.
But you know, when you do look at used tractors, you will find the 300,000, 300,000 miles is pretty standard on used.
And they get it pretty fast.
Yeah, and a good truck will go quickly. I mean, they're always in demand.
Let's take that vote.
All right. So I need a motion.
Yeah. I move to accept the bid from FIDA for the 2020 Western Star 4900 at the purchase price of $113,250.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. A motion.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Motion carries.
Put Collins, they don't sell it.
I signed the paperwork so they would hold it until tonight's action of the
Good.
board, and
Good.
explain to them that it's not final until the board says it's final. But they agreed to hold it for us, so we'll be in good shape. Next item on the agenda, we have the Harner Run Development Sanitary Sewer Project. I'm going to let Rich talk a little bit about that this evening.
Yeah, this is a development out off of South Pierpont exit, Harner Run that's there. They're building, I guess the plan is for about 69 townhomes off of Harner Run. And so this gets sewer out to them. It includes about 1,500 feet of gravity sewer line and some manholes and about 2,100 feet of 3-inch force main and a new lift station. And so we put that out to bid, and the lowest qualified bidder was Parada Paving, in the amount of $651,339.75. And that bid tab is also included in your packet.
Okay. Have a chance to review that. Any discussion? Questions?
I I move to accept the bid by Parada Paving for the Harner Run Development Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $651,339.75.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any- Okay, motion carries. Old business.
Okay, so first up, we have the water treatment plant, high service pump house and system improvement project. I know we haven't talked about it in every meeting, but we have had Strand working very hard on putting together the preliminary engineering report. And Scott Stearns and Sam Hosevar with Strand are here this evening to give a presentation on the project. Chris, would you mind pulling that around a little bit or Sam, thank you, the screen monitor so we can see a little bit better. So Scott will lead off this evening.
That's good.
There, shoot, isn't it?
Yeah, and it'll be up here as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to be in front of the board again. Happy fall, almost. So tonight we're here to talk about the water system planning project summary. So, as Mr. McNulty had indicated, this entire project kind of started with the high service pumping station and the needs for that high service pumping station. It was circa 1940, and old equipment, structural issues with the existing high service pumping station. And as we were looking at it, it was really time to kind of take a holistic view of the entire water system, and that's really what this report and these findings indicate. And hopefully this can be used as a guidance document as far as how to move forward with the water treatment plant and the identification of some of the needs that are out there. So the master planning provides comprehensive assessment of MUB's water system. This just is indication of all the assets that are under MUB's watchful eye. I'm not going to go through each of them, but obviously you've got a very large area where you've got water treatment plant, you've got tanks, you've got pumps, and obviously you've got just miles and miles of network of pipes and valves that you need to keep operational. So the forecasted growth drives the need for additional capacity following the period of fairly stable demand. This is a graphic here that shows what these dots here are actual water usage, and then we did a best fit essentially based on the water usage at the time, and then we just mirrored what was anticipated to be the population growth in the county, and thus a portion of that population growth in the county is going to happen within your water area. And so that's what's happening with the pink line. The 1 million gallon MTB, that's mountaintop beverage, so that got added on. And then the green line, blue line, I don't know, the other color line on the top here indicates the peak daily demand that happens. And so that's really what drives the capacity of the plant, of pumping, those sorts of things. You need to be able to pump that peak day, or else you have to tell your customers to conserve water, right? And that's not what a water utility wants to do. Yes, sir.
You have basically not built in any expansion of mountaintop beverage in the development. It's just an increment from what we currently have.
No, the 1 million is the projected peak. They're nowhere near 1 million at this point, correct?
Right. Oh, okay.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
But they have identified that to be essentially what they may expand to, and so we felt like it was prudent in the planning process to kind of at least account for that and know that. So I think the moral of this slide is that it won't take very long, depending upon how you slope the pink lines until you reach that peak day. And so we've got here 2029. It could be 2029. It could be 32, whatever. But it's probably not going to be 2045, right? You're gonna have a capacity issue at some point in time. On top of that, there's also some just age of equipment, and we'll get into some of that here. Sam will get into that later. So master planning work culminates in projects to maintain MUB's water system. So the planning activities that we did, kind of talked about it already here as far as reviewing the flows at the plant and the demands of the system. We developed a system-wide water hydraulic model, and Sam will dive into that a little bit more. But that hydraulic model was done to be able to, figure out where the system is stressed. Identification of projects then were, and then total opinion of probable cost. What's this sort of thing gonna take? We've really kind of tried to bin these 5 elements into the water treatment plant upgrades, which are kind of everything else circles around that. And then you have the water main projects, you've got elevated storage tank projects, you've got booster station projects, and then you've got customer metering. So those are the things that we're here to talk about tonight, and I think this is where Sam's going to lead us.
All right, good evening. I'm Sam Hosvar again, and I'm going to start walking through some of the key findings and recommendations, starting with the water treatment plant. Water treatment plant improvements address capacity and concerns across all of the infrastructure on the water treatment plant site. If you haven't been down to the site in a while, this is what it looks like, and I've color-coded it based on the last time that there was a major improvement, which was 2010. So any of the light blue boxes were constructed during that project. Anything that was green had a major renovation. And so, 2010 was now, 14, 15 years ago at this point. So those facilities are starting to show their age, and so we looked holistically at the condition, not only of the new facilities, but also facilities that haven't been touched in a while. You'll see one of the only structures that really wasn't upgraded, which is the orange color, was that the river water and high service pumping station, which I've highlighted there is now over 50 years old and contains piping and pumping equipment, which is really at the end of its useful life. As Scott alluded to at the start of the presentation, this is really what drove the start of this planning period and is a key recommendation coming out of this report. We identified critical needs, that were defined by this master planning effort, either based on findings that Strand led or using input from MUB on issues that they know were plaguing some of the existing conditions. Everything on the slide here would be a summary of the key findings or recommendations coming out of this, and we really grouped the improvements into 2 different categories. The major improvements are shown with the more kind of purple circles, the first 4 items on the list here. Those are major improvements that I'll kind of step through one by one and give you a little bit more detail about. The remaining 7 items are, more not necessarily not exciting, but less flashy. They're equipment replacement, things that need to happen in order to make sure that the plant continues to run well. Things like equipment replacements, upgrading some of the SCADA and computer system, looking at site security. And so I'm not planning to dive into much detail on any of those, but if you do have any questions, I'd love to answer them during the presentation or during the question and answer. So let's start off with the new high service pumping station. Ultimately, a new high service pumping station on the Dinsmore property, which is north of the existing site, will provide the best value for MUB. We did look at 4 different alternatives as part of this planning effort, looking at keeping within the existing building footprint. Reminder, that's the orange box that we've shown on the map. We looked at maybe expanding, making the building a little bit bigger, but contiguous to the existing structure. That would be shown in green. We looked at building a new building on the existing site, and then we looked at building a new building on the new property that you've acquired with the Dinsmore property. And ultimately, that alternative for the new Dinsmore site is really the alternative that's going to provide the best value for MUB. You have improved access and space for O&M, operation and maintenance. On the next slide, I'll show you what a conceptual site plan of that building would look like and how nice and neat it will be compared to what you have now. It's also at a very good hydraulic location. You're able to tie into the suction lines coming off the plant right into the discharge lines that are going to run to, down your major distribution corridors. Putting it on a new site means that you have improved construction and sequencing because you don't have to, renovate the house while you're still living in it. You get to build it, in a space that is set aside. And then you're not relying on an existing structure, it's already showing its sign of age. The plan is not to demolish the existing, structure that's in orange. It does house a couple of other pumps or equipment, but by moving the new facilities to this new building, you don't have to embark in major structural renovations that would, may unravel threads you don't want to go down or require a lot more investment. So looking at the new building footprint, the construction of a new building allows MUB to address operations, safety, and maintenance concerns. I've got a first floor plan and a basement plan that show what a conceptual new high service pump station would look like. There's 4 high service pumps. They would all be of equal size. That's a difference from what you have now. Right now you have a couple really big workhorse pumps, really big horsepower, and then a couple that kind of sit there idly and don't get used very often. So the idea would be a very common equipment that'd be able to cycle on and off. The purple line running over top of those is a nice big hoist that will allow you to pick that equipment up and move it safely in and out of the building. That is something that you do not have now, and it's a very big challenge. All of the blue areas are working spaces around the piping and the equipment, ample room that you can disassemble pumps, valves, different equipment, move around freely. You also notice that there is a first floor in the basement. In the basement, it would have valving, suction lines, and new floater metering equipment, which right now are buried either underneath the existing structure itself or in the yard in valve pits, meaning that it's very difficult to access, it's very difficult to change, but all of this would be really easy to get to in a new configuration like this. And then obviously you have new electrical rooms and ancillary spaces that would, separate electrical equipment away from the pump equipment. If you go down in the pump station now, you'll see that that equipment is all housed in a common room, and that's medium voltage equipment that you may not want water and electricity touching.
Oh yeah.
That's probably why.
All right, moving on to one of the next major improvements that are proposed, and it's related to disinfection. We propose to move the chlorine gas room away from its existing place into a standalone building to improve working conditions and public safety. The existing chlorine gas cylinders and disinfection equipment is housed in the basement of the existing chemical building, and we would move it to a new standalone building. This, not only would allow you to upgrade some of the equipment, but expand on it, add additional safety equipment that is now pretty much commonplace or standard for this type of disinfection. But it would separate that then away from spaces, just above. You've got, the lab and administration spaces and other chemical storage. So really, the thought here is that moving this to a new space would allow you to do the necessary upgrades as well as really improve safety. And that would be for the staff as well as for the public. Chlorine gas leaks are scary business, and so we would put a new chlorine gas scrubber in there to make sure that everyone is properly protected or risks are mitigated. And then the last item is sort of a twofold. It's an expansion and facelift of the administration spaces, which are on the first floor of that chemical building, which would benefit the staff and the public. Right now, if you've gone in there, there's a couple of spaces in there. There's several different labs, kind of a control room, which houses some of the IT equipment, and then there's a couple of restrooms. And this is an area that staff works with, that public comes in and drops off samples, or maybe as a gathering place for tours. And so the idea here would be to sort of expand the building to the front of the building, build out some new spaces, and then reconfigure some of the internal areas that are still there. So this would allow you to add a reception area as well as ADA access for deliveries and visitors. It would create a dedicated IT space, which would improve security because you'd be able to, put that in a locked room where no one would be able to get at it. It would be away. It would also keep it nice and safe. It wouldn't be kind of tucked into a closet like it is now. Reconfiguring these spaces allows you to improve the lab size and layout, which is needed. Things are getting a little cramped in there. As, you know that there are a number of tests that have to be done on the daily to ensure that you're getting proper water treatment each and every day. And then by reconfiguring these administration spaces and also moving some of the chemical feed with the disinfection like we talked about on the last slide, it gives you flexibility to reorganize some of the chemical storage areas that are on the basement and first floor, and really just optimize the whole building and really give it a whole facelift. Facelift is an adequate word here. As you would be building up front, it would also allow you to have a little more control over what that building looks like. And so as people enter, it would be a nice welcoming place to walk in. So what does that look like? This would be kind of a holistic view. The existing site as well as the Dinsmore property provides the necessary space for the current and future expansion. That's kind of the headline. The foresight to find that Dinsmore property and start that remediation process is really a good thing here, because that vacant space adjacent to the existing treatment processes really gives you the flexibility that you need to upgrade and build new, while also keeping flexibility for future, whether it be emerging contaminants, whether it be for additional treatment capacity that you need, not for this next phase, but maybe the phase after that. And so the site plan here, includes new construction highlighted in blue, and then all of the other areas that we would be touching with some of these small ancillary projects highlighted in purple. And so the intent would really be to make sure that the next 20-year planning period is covered. And, we wouldn't be up here talking to you again unless something really bad is happening. So with that, I'm going to pivot and talk a little bit more about the outer ring of our circle away from the water treatment plant out in the distribution system. And I'll start in the booster station realm. Booster station projects help move treated water across the distribution system. That's their job. And a comprehensive update to the water model of MUB system is, it creates a powerful tool that we can use for this analysis. This modeling software, it's a dynamic model, and, I'll try not to nerd out too much for you guys, as I do whenever a model is involved, but that, we're able to simulate a variety of scenarios. The minimum flow, the average day, the peak flow, all those different demand scenarios that you guys would be interested in making sure you're going to have the right amount of water getting to the right places at the right time. The model will tell you the pressure in each individual segment of pipe that you have in your system. It'll show you the hydraulic grade line as that water flows. It'll show you what the flow rates are, and then it'll look at things like the tank levels to make sure that not only is the water getting to the right place, but you have it stay there for the right amount of time. So the example here would be, just a snippet of what that interface looks like. A lot of, inputs and parameters on the left-hand side. There's a graphical interface so you can kind of dial in, figure out which pipes you're looking at, and really down to the pipe segment, analyze what's going on. And then, we run these for, static periods of time as well as dynamic kind of 24-hour simulations. So here you're seeing what it might look like to look at the level in a tank over a, 24-hour period as demands fluctuate up and down and, sort of level up. And really there are three kind of key findings, and really, it's a validation of things that the MUB staff sort of brought up at the beginning before we had even started this modeling process. And really getting the right amount of water to move, to the east is a critical concern. And there are really three projects that came out of this modeling process. And so two of them are related to moving flow from, kind of the downtown area over into Sayreton and into those union districts. And two new pumping stations or booster station improvements are recommended in the Union District, as well as in the Sayreton District. And these would be new booster stations at strategic locations, brand new facilities that would be sized appropriately, but then would also include everything that you would want in a modern facility. Backup power generation. We'll talk about it in the next couple of slides, but integration into water main projects to be able to make sure that the water is moving from one tank to the next tank. You've got a big system, and you want to be sure that every customer, regardless of if they're 1 minute or 1 hour away from the treatment plant, is the right approximate same level of service. The last item there, C, would be adding a standby power generation to the Wiles Hill booster station, which is one of the core booster stations in the city and serves a lot of critical needs. So making sure that there's resiliency there is another near-term goal. Affecting all of the remote stations is radio telemetry. The existing SCADA system, which is used to control and monitor all this equipment, uses radio telemetry as the backbone of its communication. The equipment that is installed in all of those panels is based on serial radio equipment, which is now over 10 years old and is obsolete at this point. You can't buy the same replacement cards unless you scour the bowels of eBay to try and find something from somebody's basement. So we recommend a holistic project to upgrade some of this telemetry equipment and replace it with current Ethernet radio technology. So kind of swapping out some cards and making sure that the electrical items, which are have some of the shortest useful life of the components that we talk about when we get up, is modern. And And this would affect booster stations, the tank, and kind of anything that's away from the water treatment plant. Turning now to the water main projects, those will be kind of done in conjunction with some of those booster projects that we talked about to address bottlenecks. And really, project number 1 would be water main addition downstream of the Union Booster Station, which would happen in conjunction with some of those booster station projects we just talked about, to make sure that it's, not only can you pump it, but there's a place to push the water when you need to. So that's project A. Project B on the map is replacement of some water main on Monongahela Boulevard, which is kind of a critical water main, and we looked at several different routing options as part of the planning period, just due to the kind of critical nature and location of that piece of water main. And then the third near-term project would be, or item C would be a Union District and Cheat connection, and again, that's the intent there is to provide additional capacity to eliminate bottlenecks. In the future, again, this is coming out of more the modeling, some watch areas, I guess we would like to call, maybe something that you think about in the future, are a pressure sustaining valve in Lower Westover, and then a Greystone extension out G Lake area. The next set of projects is elevated storage tank projects. These revitalize coatings on existing tanks, and there are really 2 tanks that MUB staff identified were in need of evaluation in the near term, and that was the Morgantown Airport or mile ground tank, as well as the Greystone tank. You can see aerial images of those. One looks very normal, the other one's pretty cool. You don't always get that paint job.
Yeah.
Strandstaff did go out and do a field investigation, a site visit, and we found that the exterior coatings sort of were in line with MUB's expectations and have deteriorated and really need to be, the surface needs to be prepared, and a full recoat is needed on all of these tanks. Due to the size and kind of magnitude, some of these tank repainting projects are things that MUB would do in-house, but this one is a scale that it would be sort of an engineered effort and would be undertaken by a general contractor to the work to do. The good news is that on the inside, the interior coatings were observed to be in good condition. So really, we're just kind of focusing on what to do on the outside, as well as if there's any small ancillary items that need to be addressed, like replacing lights on the top or improvement to valve.
How long has it been since those tanks were last painted?
That's a good question.
I think the Greystone is the original paint job, because I was on the Cheatneck Public Service District when we had that tank installed.
Okay.
And I think it hasn't been painted since that time. I could be wrong.
What would that be?
Probably in the late 90s. Given the deterioration, would that be what you would expect?
Makes sense. Yeah.
I should know that off the top of my head, that we did do 2 inspection reports that I think Rich and his folks have, so we can get that information to you guys.
I know, what type of coatings are there? Because I know there's a concern with the airport one that the color orange may not be the proper FAA color orange any longer.
Yeah, I think that would be something that we would, in the design, we could. I know that we did reach out to the FAA during the sort of just preliminary works, just to make sure that things were generally in line with what they were thinking. I think we have the opportunity to correct anything that anybody feels is a deficiency, with the coatings, especially with the, if we need to touch up the colors and things like that. I think the coatings are generally, need to be replaced, and you'd be looking at, pretty much a holistic replacement.
Is the Greystone tank adequate to meet the continued growth in the Cheat Lake area, or is an additional tank needed further down the line?
There weren't any new tank recommendations that came out of the report. I think we were looking at water age and things like that. It seemed like that was there was no issues that we identified, at least in the near term. The last item is improvements to the customer metering equipment. And this would really be focused on automated meter reading, AMR, or there's a couple of acronyms that are used somewhat interchangeably, but it would be based on the selection of the technology, where it allows you to collect water meter data electronically rather than having to go and read it manually by hand. And And you guys have a lot of water meters in your system. Replacing them all with automated meters is a very large endeavor, and so MUB staff have initially identified about 4,500 meters to include in the first phase of implementation. This would include all of the large meters that are 2 inches or larger, and then about 4,000 meters that are either in indoor locations, difficult to access locations, or even possibly unsafe conditions where, the meter reader has had trouble getting to those areas or issues getting good meter reading data consistently. So we've included, that number of meters in this first round of implementation.
At what point do we start looking at a requirement that automated meters be installed in new houses that are constructed so that becomes a component of those housing costs?
That may be something that you can consider in the future. I think you would have to have some sort of backbone you'd have to start with the system in order to be able to receive that data before you would want to require it from others.
Well, I understand that most of them would be like this new development that we're talking about, 95 homes. If they had that in there, then the meter reader just runs through the neighborhood, reads all the meters, and goes on to the next place.
You provide the meters for the homeowners, typically? We're going to go to 50-some outdated ones.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Scott now. He's going to kind of wrap it up with the next steps and kind of go across the findings.
Okay, so we know Sam's a bright young man because he turned it over to me to talk about costs. So here we go. We went through a lot of different things here, and so we can just briefly talk about all the different elements here. The water treatment plant projects were a little over identified as a little over $40 million. The booster station projects were over $15 million. Water main projects were about 2.6, and the metering projects were 4.8 million. So total, we identified up to a little over $64 million worth of projects that are associated with actual needs. All these projects don't need to be done simultaneously, but the water treatment plant, I think we'll identify here as a real need, and we can talk about that here in a little bit. So the next steps. This is a graphic that shows the projects here along the y-axis, and on the x-axis we've got number of years. And you can see the longest bar is associated with the water treatment plant. And so the water treatment plant, if you were to say go, would take about a year and a half to get designed. It's a very $40 million project. It would take some time and effort to get that completed. And then following that, there is a multi-year construction effort. And so we're thinking that a project like this would probably take 4.5 years. So recall we talked about how that growth line was, what was happening at the water treatment plant based on demand, and that was we had 2029, 2032. What's the slope of the line, and we can debate that, but it's not, like I said, it's not 2035, it's not 2040. It will be before that. So there definitely are some projects that do, in my opinion, have a driver that has a time function associated with it. So all the other projects would probably be done by they could be other, they would probably be unique projects that would be done. Usually the customer metering, for example, would be a unique project, and the elevated storage, that's a specialty contractor associated with the painting. Water mains linear projects are usually somebody who's a little different type of contractor. So comprehensive, but probably not not the. It's a comprehensive need. I think we've got a good handle on what's required for the future. love to open it up for technical questions, and Sam and I would be happy to clarify anything that didn't quite make sense.
We'll go back a little bit to the buildings on the water treatment side.
Yeah.
You identified relocating 2 buildings that are currently between the Caperton Trail and the river over to the Dinsmore site.
This slide here.
Yeah. What would become then of that space between the trail and the river, and is there benefit to having that space open instead of the space that's contiguous to the existing plant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and part of the question is probably stemming from the fact that this is an aerial photo and it doesn't show everything that's buried. So there are clear wells that are located in the ground right in this area.
Okay.
In both existing and new clear wells, and then there's kind of a spaghetti mess of piping that is also going in that area. So I don't know if you would use that I don't know if you'd use that area between the trail and the pumping station, immediately, but long term it would give you some additional real estate if you needed it. I think the easier buildable areas would be on the Dinsmore site, though.
So you're not seeing any, when I look at this, I see the sedimentation basin. That's a huge footprint for the site. Is that something that, to me, when I envision expanding the plant, I just envision that expanding, but also I'm not an engineer. I don't work in wastewater treatment or clear water treatment. Is that something that in the future we would need to expand, or is that something that is, by the future, could be 30, 40 years from now, but is that something that would be better off moving to the north than out to the west?
Yeah, so again, a very astute question. This is a large area here, these said basins. What we have in mind right now, and we don't have this, this would be probably not next phase, but the phase after, would be, you could add something called tube settlers, and those tube settlers would allow you to essentially, in that same square footage, to get similar performance as if you built a larger tank. The other thing that your facility has going for it that a lot of facilities don't is that you're not just taking river water and sedimenting it and running it right through your membrane filters. You're first sending it through sand filters, and those sand filters take out a lot of the turbidity in front of the membranes, and so that's what really allows you, Chris and staff, to be able to keep those membranes in peak performances, because they're not seeing a lot because of the sand filters up front, and those were existing. They were incorporated into the flow schematic, and they allowed great performance. So that's a lot of words to say. I don't think we're going to need another block of sedimentation basins, but it's something that we discussed. If we absolutely did, there's some more space efficient processes now that involve sand settling and some ballasted chemical flocculation that would allow us to
new equipment of the same footprint, right? Equal a lot more than we're currently doing.
Right, more, be able to do more and less, but it doesn't just rely on gravity at that time. It relies on some other magic that happens, and it's just if we can keep it simple, we're going to keep it simple.
Going back to that time frame, the telecommunications, the monitoring, that seems to be something that probably needs to be done fairly soon, given the archaic nature of the equipment. And it's also a fairly inexpensive project compared with some of the others.
I think that we have. So the process that we went through when we were identifying projects is, we developed a lot of different projects, and we came up with some prioritization that was identified. But for sure, the board and staff can have more influence on, which projects happen first and which projects just kind of logically make sense to, like what you're talking about, a radio or a SCADA upgrade, can be done separately, and that can be a unique project. It could be a unique contractor probably working on that project, and absolutely, we can say this one's first.
Any other questions for the discussion? A lot of work in that.
Do you have other clients? Because we're just.
No. He doesn't have any other clients.
Not at the moment.
Yes.
Or other, sort of following up on that, but I imagine other utilities of comparable size are going through the same type of exercise, but in some parts of the country, they may even have higher growth rates than we're experiencing in Montague County.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat remarkable. Your MUB is a forward-thinking utility, and having the master planning document, to use as your guide is, I would say, I wish it was more common. Sometimes it's a little more piecemeal, and I always feel like, the planning effort is one of those things that I think is always worth it, because it gives everybody the peace of mind that you're focusing on what needs to be focused on.
Wall Street Journal podcast last week about Katy, Texas, and how they are spending hundreds of millions to build pipelines to get water from elsewhere, because they've seen a 50% increase in population in the last decade. Maybe in the next 75 years, we'll have time where we're facing that as people are looking to relocate. But, it doesn't matter what kind of planning you do now. You're not going to plan for a 50% increase in population in a decade's time. So,
Right, it's a challenge.
Well, you're a good partner to work with.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been a great relationship. So, all right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, just stick around. We'll be getting to the Cheat Lake project here shortly. So,
Actually, at this point, we are at the Cheat Lake wastewater treatment
look
plant.
how quick that goes. That's great. So,
Keep that up.
yeah. So today we had our mandatory pre-bid. We had four prime contractors attend today. So Scott and Sam put on the presentation a little bit, asked some questions, and did a site visit with contractors today. We opened bids on September 24th, and so that's when, tails to tail, we'll know then. And Rich, you have anything you'd like to add?
No. We're just, we're hoping that we get 4 bids from those 4 primes, and that we get a good bid, and we're able to proceed with the project.
and remind me from there, once we get those bids open, then obviously we'll know a price, and we'll move forward with starting the bond conversations with banks and council.
Well, the bond ordinance has already been read once at City Council. So is the project ordinance. We are working to get we'll know then when we open bids about what the cost will be and what that means rate-wise. And so, we're hoping to come in with our budget, our advertised rates, but that the rate ordinance won't then have to proceed. I believe City Council is prepared to do the first reading in October, the first meeting. I think that's going to go fine. I feel like, and speaking with the city manager as well, we've extensively discussed the rates. with City Council. They're out there. The customers have all been informed. Everyone received a letter about the rates and what we expect them to be. And so, right now, I think we've had very, very little negative feedback. I think everyone understands. This project is desperately needed for it to continue to grow. The project will move forward regardless, really. I mean, the DEP, and we've gone over this with City Council as well. This was our commitment to DEP because we are exceeding our limits. And if we're working towards this, DEP is pleased to see our progress. And, we plan to keep moving forward. The last thing that anyone wants is a consent order from DEP requiring us to do it. Because normally with consent orders, there would be penalties and things like that. None of us want that. So
It shows a lot of dysfunction that does not exist.
Right. So we are a good partner and moving ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, I think the cooperation and collaborative relationship with the city and MUB have been, through this process, have been good, and I don't feel like there are any questions or any outstanding issues from the city with regards to this project. Just, hopefully the bids come in within kind of what we're projecting for what the rate increase needs to be.
And Dave, I'd like to say thank you for having the first reading at the last council meeting. We really appreciate Ryan's putting forward this to the council. It was a very long meeting, and we appreciate that we were not required to be there. Well, that's another way to put it. Yes,
Survived.
but we do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a good team effort.
Okay, next.
Okay, so we are moving forward with the West Ridge, Chaplain Hill water and sewer projects. I'm going to kind of let Jeff give us the board a bit of an update where we are. We've been making sure everyone knows, the bids have all been opened. That's all moving forward. And Jeff,
notice of awards have been provided to all the contractors, so the project is set to begin mid-November.
Short and sweet.
yeah. So we're working through the paperwork right now, and I think we are on track.
So we've got 4 contracts out there at the moment.
Yes, we have on the water system. We have 3 on the water, and we have 1 on sewer project with the Chaplain Hill. So,
All right. Next we have Pocono Run.
okay, so Upper Pocono Run, we signed the paperwork with Larita Construction, so we are moving full speed ahead. We are hoping to have some additional conversations with Shorey Andersons. We would like to work out this project where we can make those corrections on their system and make improvements. So hopefully they'll get in touch with us soon.
Okay, good.
And Mike, just for public's information, we tried to reach out to schedule a meeting last week.
Yes.
That we did not hear back from them.
No, I have not heard back from them. I have reached out, but I have not heard back.
Like those efforts to make ask again.
Right. Okay, Morgan Run.
So the Morgan's Run, it looks like the DEP, they have, they're right on the verge of wrapping up their review to send it off to the federal office of mining. So that's moving ahead. With the Corps, they announced that they have some dollars available for infrastructure projects in our district. And so what what they require is a IJDC application to review. Although they don't go through the council, they just wanted that application so they could sort of, because they don't really have, I guess, a process. It works neater for them to go use the IJDC application. And so they are reviewing it. It's a joint review from the Pittsburgh office, the Baltimore office, and the Huntington, I should say districts, not offices. And they look at this project to see if it qualifies for their Section 571 program funding. So right now it's very encouraging. Again, we do know there's pre-77 mining activity, and so we're hoping that the AML abandoned mine land dollars will become available, and maybe couple that with the core money.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think we're here locally, we're dealing with things very local, and yet we have responsibilities to agencies in a huge geographic area at a federal level. And the public doesn't often, they're not often aware of that, nor are we in some cases until we find out that what we're trying to do has other implications. So it's fascinating that the water as a utility has these responsibilities, and a lot of work to be done to deal with those.
And I would just remind the board, we now are changing the Public Service Commission of West Virginia is now promulgated rules for fire hydrants, and so we're moving forward, and we'll be doing more testing and so forth. So nothing that can't be done. It's just another requirement that's put upon us.
Don't take anything away. Give us a little more.
Give us a little more.
Okay. EPA Brownfield's another responsibility.
Yeah, so everybody's probably driven by the Dinsmore site along Von Knox, and there's not much to see there now. The big chimney came down last week, and I think they're making very good progress. Rich, I'm going to let you pick it up here and talk a little bit about what our consultant has recommended and kind of where we're headed.
Yeah, very good progress on all the structures are down now. They're pretty much finished with cleaning the site up. All of the material's been removed. Just a little cleanup to happen, and security fence permanent to be installed around the area. Our consultant, Greenbrier Environmental, and our demolition contractor both recommended that after the demolition occurred, that we should leave the floor slabs in place. And originally, we had the idea that those would come out, and we obviously agree with them, and so we're going to leave those in place. That would prevent us from having to deal with high groundwater and an unstable surface once we remove. It's stable now with the floor slabs and the asphalt that's there in the road. Without having to deal with a bigger problem now and stabilizing it, we would have to cap it as part of the environmental process anyways. It's capped now with the floor slabs, and so that's the plan moving forward, is to leave those slabs in place and deal with them when we go to construct our expansion of the water treatment plant in those facilities in just those areas where we need to. So that's the plan moving forward. I think now that the demolition is down, and in fact, our consultant has already requested a meeting, and it may have been set up already. The site will now be entered into the volunteer remediation program through West Virginia DEP, and so they'll come in and take over basically and tell us what we need to do to monitor the site and for how long. I would assume some additional monitoring wells will be installed, and some observation and monitoring will have to occur over a certain time period before they, make a recommendation on how to move forward with this. That's really the plan.
Given the fact that this was part of a $500,000 grant that would remove those slabs and put down the 6-inch gravel cap, would we be risking spending ratepayer money when we do these projects we just heard about to take care of something that could have been handled under this grant if we continued as the original plan was.
There'll be some work to do, basically cutting the slab. So foundations for any building that would go there, just like on the site beside it, would have to be deep foundations. And so you're talking about probably cutting where those pilings would go down through.
So
That'll be the extent of it.
and we'd be dealing with that if it was a gravel cap or if it was the current foundations.
So cutting those slabs, not necessarily a big deal, but yes, the slab wouldn't be there. Obviously, if we take it out, so it would happen. But it's not. It doesn't sound like it's a huge deal to build those foundations.
It's good news.
Rich, I'm just curious. What was at that site prior to Dinsmore Tire? What was it that created the brownfield site there? Was it glass or
There was a glass factory there.
World War II factory?
There are munitions across the river.
I think there was a glass factory there at one time. There were components that came out of that building that no one could identify what they were because they were just so old. No one had seen anything like that. So I think that was part of the oil transfer where they would take it off the barges off of the Mon River and transfer it into the tanks up here at White Park. There was a wrecker service there at one time, so there were multiple, but which business was, I'm not sure.
And I was just kind of curious, like at what point does it get flagged as a brownfield site because it had this on it and or this was discovered?
If only we knew someone at a Brownfields conference at the moment.
He's going to bring us back the information if he's awake. Okay. All right, you heard what your assignment is. All right, City of Westover.
Nothing really new to report. We're just waiting on the Public Service Commission to issue their order. So don't know when to expect it, but it could come anytime.
Okay, then that brings us to your report.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to add this evening. Our employee appreciation picnic will be held on Tuesday, September 17th, down at the water treatment plant. We're going to start at 11 o'clock and end up about 2. Employees will come in and out and have lunch as they're available to do so. Obviously, we'd love for all the board members to come down and take part and be part of that day. It's always been a fun day, and we've always had a pretty good food.
Very good food. Very well organized. We really appreciate all the effort the staff puts into getting it.
Look, I gotta say, I gotta give that credit to Amy Tassay.
Yes.
She is the taskmaster. She puts it all together.
Amy makes it happen.
Amy makes it happen.
And how do you show her the employee appreciation?
I'll make something up.
You serve her dinner.
That's exactly right. I always get a plate for Amy. That's what I do. Oh, come on, Eric. Don't ask those kinds of questions.
Eric, we'll leave that up to you. You got to think of something.
Just you know,
tasks.
all of you guys need to do is think of my poor wife who has to live with me and deal
Oh, I
with
know. It's
me
terrible.
being from time to time like this. Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to any board member discussions that we may have or may entertain. Anyone got any topics to bring forward?
Well, you know, one thing I did fail to mention, I'm sorry, we just started the repairs over at Crepes Park, over where the Pocono.
Okay.
The embankment has eroded underneath the concrete sidewalk, and we mobilized yesterday. Work has already started. Our crews are there. I think we're going to see a lot of progress this week.
Yeah, the sidewalk's gone. The footer has been prepped for concrete tomorrow. So the concrete footer will be poured tomorrow. Blocks arrive on Thursday.
Great, thank you. I shared that with council, and it was very, very much appreciated. So, cool.
Okay, there is something I did want to distribute to the board members. So 9/11 is coming up Wednesday, and some of us have had more personal involvement in 9/11 than others. One in particular on this board, which is Dr. Witt and his wife were there at 9/11 when it happened. And so Chris has put together information for us, recounting Tom and Greta's experience and really making it personal for us. So I'm sure it was something that none of us would have wanted. You can pass that around. And certainly left your life with a lot of memories and experiences that none of us have shared. So I did want to make that available to you, and the complete story is here. It's well done. It's well documented. And we just wanted to acknowledge, Tom, that we're aware and we're glad you're here.
And I have to commend Chris. Did probably the most definitive report I've seen
You can pass that back.
on our experiences.
Yes, is that right?
Mhm.
He did. He did a very fine job. Chris does a nice job, especially with the detail that's involved here. And some pictures of Tom's briefcase and his cell phone, or his, I guess it was a BlackBerry.
No, it was a Palm Pilot.
Palm Pilot. Oh, yeah.
Technology.
Those.
Yeah, BlackBerry didn't exist then.
Well, no, they did, because one of the guys that was walking with me uptown had a BlackBerry. He communicated with his son in Boston.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I did want to make that available and to acknowledge that Tom has quite an experience related to 9/11. It just also happens to be my brother's birthday, so he tries to celebrate before 9/11, which we did last week. So
I have a brother-in-law, first cousin, that also had his birthday tomorrow. And
yeah, we
not a day to
think it's something else, right? So again, very appreciative of this information. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Very
All
good,
right.
sure.
All right, good. Thank you. Hearing nothing else, do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I move to convene an executive session of the Board of Directors under the provisions of West Virginia Code Section 6-9A-4, Parent 9 and Parent 12 to discuss advanced construction planning and other confidential matters which are exempt from disclosure under the West Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and further move to adjourn the meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Okay, 1 second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried.